Thanks, Tim. I'd like to introduce to people who have heard the race story before, the new race. If you know anything about the company that was before 12 months ago, then forget about it. It's a completely new company, new board, new management, new strategy. Everything's changed. The only thing that stayed the same really is the name and the ticker. And so it's really quite an important thing to know. Next slide, please. It's a corporate snapshot. One thing that many people might not be aware of is a little over a year ago, we had a market cap of around $3 million. In that last 15, 16 months, we've grown up to 275 million. It's been an amazing ride. And this change has taken place of me coming on board. I came in as an investor to the company. I own currently around 12% fully diluted, and I'm completely focused on ensuring a return to the shareholders. Next slide, please. So we have three real heroes within the company. First one is the drug. The second is the team, because without the right team, you're not going to get anywhere. And the third is the strategy, which we're calling the 3-pillar strategy. Next slide, please. So the drug, Bisantrene. Bisantrene is very unusual. It was developed in the 1970s by a company called Ledley Pharmaceuticals. It was a division of American Cyanamide, big bulk chemical company. It was trialed in a whole range of different cancers, over 40. And it showed really excellent activity in acute myeloid leukemia, a very nasty leukemia, breast cancer and ovarian cancer. In breast cancer, it went all the way through to phase 3, where it performed very well. And in AML, it was actually registered within France. This is before the European Union took over registration. Since then, RAC has basically reacquired, remanufactured the drug, built a really strong patent position around ownership. We have received orphan drug designation, and this is really valuable in itself. It gives you 7 years post-approval exclusivity. And we've secured rare pediatric disease designation, which entitles us to a priority review voucher. I won't have time to talk about that today. We ran a small phase 2 clinical trial in collaboration with the Shiva Medical Group in Israel in relapsed and refractory AML, and we saw a 40% response rate in some really hard to treat patients. We also released last week a preclinical data on breast cancer, which supports us establishing a new breast cancer trial. One of the things before I move on to the next slide is Bisantrene looks fantastic, so why was it lost? And sometimes this happens in the pharmaceutical industry. Great drugs get lost. A classic example of this is Keytruda, probably the largest selling drug of all time. And it was almost thrown away by Merck back in the early 2000s. Can happen to the best drug in the world, can get lost for all sorts of different reasons that have nothing to do with how well the drug works. Next slide, please. We have the team to do this, so we're well seasoned, taking drugs through to market. Our intention is to take this through to a transaction, either a partnership or outright sale with large pharma. We're not going to become the next Pfizer or J&J. We're focused entirely on return to shareholders. Next slide, please. We have, whilst we're a small team internally, at the board level, we have a large extended race team. You can see here just a quick overview of all the people involved. And this allows us massive leverage in getting the things done that need to get done when you run a biotech. Next slide, please. So what is this 3-pillar strategy? It's the strategy in which we have to take Bisantrene back to the market and achieve a transaction. The goal is to either license or sale to what's known as scaled pharma, which is basically just another name for large pharma. And the three pillars revolve around an FTO opportunity, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what FTO is in a minute, breast cancer, and an AML focused pillar. Next slide, please. So what is FTO? FTO is probably the most exciting discovery in cancer in the last 10 years. I'm a bit biased on this, but it really underlies an amazing discovery that was made in 2011 around the way that normal cells become cancer cells. And one of the ways they do this is through dysregulation of the RNA epigenetic pathways. On the left-hand side, you can see how complicated this is. I'm not going to give you a science lecture on this, but the main thing to take away from this is that FTO sits right in the middle of this process. It is in the middle of controlling the growth and spread metastases of a wide range of cancers, including leukemia, breast, lung, ovarian, gastric, brain, melanoma, pancreatic, kidney. In fact, I have yet to be able to find a cancer where FTO is not an important factor. And this has made it one of the hottest areas of cancer research right now. Next slide, please. So we've decided to concentrate. Of course, we could go across almost any cancer, and we've decided to narrow down into two opportunities, one in melanoma and the other one in kidney cancer. I'll talk about the melanoma one first. It's, as many people know, it's incredibly dangerous cancer, particularly once it spreads. It can be really hard to treat. And one of the reasons why it's so hard to treat is many times the melanoma is resistant to treatment. So there's been some real breakthroughs in treatment. The immune checkpoint inhibitors, the Keytrudas of this world, have made a real difference to patients, but in many cases, they don't work. The patient doesn't respond to treatment. And it's turned out through some preclinical work done out of the University of Chicago that actually FTO is controlling this resistance. And if you target FTO, then you can overcome resistance to the PD-1 inhibitors. And you might wonder, why am I talking about FTO and Bisantrene? And it turns out that Bisantrene is an incredibly potent inhibitor of FTO, 142 nanomolar for those who are interested in this sort of thing. And it is exquisitely targeted to inhibiting FTO. So if FTO is an important target in your cancer, then Bisantrene is an important target to go after that cancer. Next slide, please. Second cancer that we'll be looking at for FTO is clear cell renal carcinoma, very serious cancer, 10th most common cancer. And the reason why it's so serious, it's often not diagnosed until after it's metastasized. And so you don't know until it's too late. You can be stage 4 and about to die, and that's the first time you get any symptoms. Turns out that in clear cell renal carcinoma, all the renal carcinomas are caused by a mutation in this gene called von Hippel-Lindau, VHL. And it turns out if you have a mutation in the VHL gene and you downregulate FTO, in other words, you target it with a drug like Bisantrene, you will kill that cancer. So this is another excellent opportunity to go after. Next slide, please. We also have a second pillar, which is the breast cancer pillar. This is aimed at breast cancer. And the idea there is to be able to take the known historical data about Bisantrene being safer for the heart and try and replace it with it into the more dangerous drugs that are currently used that tend to damage the heart. That's a massive market in itself. There's more than 2 million cases of breast cancer every year in the US. And many of those patients end up with severe side effects to the heart. Next slide, please. We also have opportunities in AML. I don't have time to talk to you about the combination opportunity, but it's still a very important opportunity. But we also have, out of the trial that was done in Israel, we identified that extramedullary AML, which just means when it spreads from the bone marrow into the body, around the body, responded really well to Bisantrene. So of the four responders that we saw in that trial, all four of them had extramedullary. And on the left-hand side, you can see a slide there. The top is the patient before they were treated, and the bottom is the patient afterwards. So you can see all the extramedullary cancer in the chest area of the patient, and that's all gone after one cycle of Bisantrene treatment. So we're currently going through a full feasibility study of this program at the moment, and it has a lot of opportunities for a very rapid path to market. Next slide, please. So what have we got coming up? We've got a lot of activities coming up. There's a lot of things. We have two preclinical programs going on for FTO, which we think is an amazing opportunity in 2021, with the aim of starting proof of concept clinical trials in either late 21, early 22. We also have the breast cancer program that's well underway already, with the aim to start proof of concept clinical trials here in Australia in early 2021. And the final one is we're working between doing either AML, either in relapsed and refractory in combination, or this extramedullary. And the advantage of this program is we have a fast, rapid path to market, which we can leverage the historical data in a niche indication and get the drug onto the market. Once you have it on the market, it's you have the ability to use it off-label, and it adds a lot of value to shareholders. Next slide, please. So what else do we have to look forward to in the near term? We have the FTO preclinical readout, we have the breast cancer clinical trial design, and we have all the various feasibility studies that are going on. Next slide, please. Finally, I'd just like to say here we have basically the right strategy to utilize the FTO insights that we have, plus protecting our chemotherapeutic things. We have really a means of minimizing the risk and maximizing the reward. We have the right team, and we have the right sort of clinical progress in order to be able to get the right return to shareholders. Thank you.
Daniel, thank you for that. Lots of questions, fairly astute questions by the looks of them. Given the age of the drug, what exactly makes the patent position so strong?
This is something that's probably not well understood. The original patents were on the drug molecule. We have patents granted already on the use of Bisantrene. So we can't patent the drug. It's long since expired, that patent, but we can patent the use of the drug in cancer, and we do have cancer. And that effectively is exactly the same as having the patent on the drug. You can't make the drug and use it because you'll be infringing our patents in that process. We also have orphan drug indication, which is irrespective of any patent protection. You can't sell, once you get approval for an indication, no one else can sell that drug for 7 years after approval. So you've got 7 years exclusivity selling that drug, and that gives you another layer of protection. So even if your patents fail, and patents can be challenged and be lost, you still have, it doesn't matter whether you've got not a single patent, the orphan drug indication holds that.
And given FTO is so hot, what other companies are working in this space at the moment?
Yeah, it's actually so hot that all the companies that are out there are all preclinical. However, despite that, so no one has got a drug in the clinic targeting this space, but there's one of our, I guess you could call it competitors, called Ascent Therapeutics. It's a private biotech out of Boston. They just did a deal with AstraZeneca in June, $1.1 billion US. And AstraZeneca paid that, not for a drug, they don't have a drug, not for any clinical data, purely to get access to the preclinical package that's coming through. So that's how much they're willing to pay. So this is an incredibly hot area. And the reason why they're doing that is they want to be there when this starts to come through. We, on the other hand, actually have a drug that's ready and already in the clinic. We know how it works. We know how to use it. We know what patients and so forth. So it's incredibly valuable. We have a 4 to 5 year lead over our competitors. And
has Bisantrene been looked at in renal and melanoma cancers before? And if not, what other studies have been done?
Yeah, it was. In the original studies that were done by Ledley, they tested it across a wide range of different cancers, and they did find responses in melanoma and kidney cancer. So there is actual clinical evidence that bisantrene works in these cancers, which is what you need. You need a combination of that plus a good preclinical model, and then you've got something there you can take into the clinic.
And Daniel, another question here, kind of more at looking at the history of the drug. So what was the reason for the previous owner failing to reach FDA approval with their phase 3 trial before with breast cancer?
Yeah, they designed the wrong trial. They got a great result. They found that the drug worked just as well as the existing drugs on the market, doxorubicin. However, they didn't design the trial to show that. They designed a trial to show that it was going to be superior to doxorubicin. There's nothing wrong with showing that it's the same as an existing drug, particularly if the drug was much less dangerous. So in the trial they did, about a quarter of the patients, 23% of the patients that got the existing drug, doxorubicin, got heart failure during the trial, really severe heart failure. Only 4% of the patients that got bisantrene actually had heart failure. So it's much, much safer, just as effective, but if you design the wrong trial, the FDA won't approve it. Unfortunately, shortly after that, American Cyanamide went bankrupt, and it all got lost in the what happened. So a combination of bad luck happened, and this happens all the time. About a quarter of all drugs that are lost at phase 3 level are lost for reasons have nothing to do with the clinical utility of the drug. They're just lost for shuffles, bankruptcies, takeovers. There's all sorts of reasons why drugs get lost that have nothing to do with how good the drug is. Merck can throw away Keytruda, then anything can happen.
Understood. And so a question here on how do you allocate capital to the different initiatives, and kind of which application is most advanced versus what has the highest chance of success?
Yeah, they're kind of in reverse order. So the one that has, the most upside, which is the pillar 1, the FTO opportunity, that one is absolutely massive because it's across so many different wide range of cancers in the precision oncology space. Breast cancer kind of sits intermediate. It's a massive opportunity, but we have good clinical data to support that. And the one that's most likely, the most rapid to market, is in AML, where it's already been on the market previously for this. We have good recent data out of Israel that it works in this indication, and we have the ability to leverage all the historical data to get rapid approval through the FDA. So they're kind of in the order of, pillar 1's biggest blue sky, the most risk. Pillar 3 is, the lowest return, still very significant, but the least risk from a clinical perspective.
Thanks, Daniel. One more, mate. If you got in on the market for AML, would you sell it, or would you expect the company to have been sold by then?
Yeah, well, our target sort of, that range that's a good one to know, because we're setting it up and to have, high quality preclinical data at phase 2 for FTO would be the ideal situation. That's when the maximum value is likely to be created for the shareholders. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about if we get acquired or someone approaches or something along these lines. It'll be up to the shareholders ultimately to make that decision. But we're focused entirely on getting a return to the shareholders as quickly as possible. I'm a major shareholder. I can't sell. My return's going to come from a deal. I'm not in it as a management thing. I'm here to get the big payoff. And I think there's got a good opportunity, a good chance of getting there.